This is Dr. Carmen Smith, and welcome to the I Am Solution channel, where I take videos and I make them more condensed, easy to watch. Usually they're only about 5 or 10 minutes long, and they're powerful. So a lot of times I'm talking about spiritual thoughts, ideas, but I also, I'm tearing up. What I also do is I make it simple and I give you practical situations and things that are happening in our current life and how you can apply the principles of spirituality and metaphysics. So in this video, just grab a hold of a teddy bear or something because it's powerful. I mean, it's a lot. I'm talking about spiritual activism. Really knowing what's going on as far as racism and violence against people of color. And I really go in there with love, and it's a lot. And but it's what we need right now. All you need is love. It's easier to sing the song than actually live that way and be love. But I talk about it. I'm also going to put a link to the video that I did with my son. It's a short documentary called The American Labyrinth. And I go into really expressing myself about Robert Fuller, who was murdered in Palmdale. So in this video, I think it's been like a couple of weeks maybe since I came back from Palmdale and the incident happened. So I'm really talking about my experience and how I was feeling and what happened during that time. And I also talk about it in the film, The American Labyrinth. Now, what can we do with this love that we have? What does Ernest Holmes say? What does Jesus say? What do the sages say we can do with this love? We can transmute hate and we can transmute fear with this love. That's what this country is saturated in. Right now, where there is not love. Now, this is another part where I would do the holy dance or drop the mic. So let me put it in practical terms. What does it mean now, Carmen? Now. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was getting ready for bed. I was on my phone and I saw on YouTube that a black man, 24 years old, was hung on a tree in Palmdale, California. And my heart exploded. I mean, I went to a place where I can't even describe to you, but I guess you would say that I lost it. So I'm a spiritual person. I love God. God is in me. I love people. But God said, it was almost like, bop, 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 bop. This is a backlash for Black Lives Matter, all of the protests. This is a punishment. This is a warning. This is a fear. This is an old playbook from the South, from not necessarily the South, but a lot of Black people ran to the North, refugees, because of all the violence that was happening in the South. And one of them was hanging and lynching. So I felt like I had just gone back and then forward, and I was just upheavaled. I was like, oh, wow. And I think the thing that really got me is that they didn't call it murder, they called it suicide. And as a mental health therapist that has been in this field for over 20 years, and I assessed suicide, I'm currently retired, but I assessed it for a living. I said that is a lie, and I think that is what got me the most. So I got in my car and I drove 4 hours to Palmdale because I wanted to go to the tree. And I was prayed up. I said, if anybody needs to go to the tree, God's people need to go to the tree. Right? Amen. So I went to the tree and I stepped foot on the area. It was underneath an American flag, which was symbolic. Somebody was following the instructions they were given and wanted to make a point. And I got that point, that this is America, who hasn't changed their instructions yet. And so I go there. There's a city hall, police station, fire station. It's in a square in the middle of town. And I stepped foot on that square because I'm very sensitive. I thought I would pick up on a lot of horrible feelings. And I talk about this before. I was stepping on holy ground. There were people all around holding vigil, different colors, different ages, older people like grandmothers on canes, veterans, people there putting balloons on the tree and candles and signs. And it was such a loving place where I thought love was going to be void. But come to think of it, after I thought about it, people were gathered there that were lovers. They were lovers, and they knew what that was. It was hate and it was fear. And there were people going there from LA and going there from Las Vegas to shine a light on something that is America's dark past and present. And so that's what love can do. The next day, I went back. I got a hotel room. I wanted to really be present. So the next day, I went back, and there were 3 police officers that were across the street at the fire station, and they had their bulletproof vests on and their military garb. And I went over to them. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I said, I kept my 6 feet distance. I had my mask on. I had my sunglasses on. And I said to them, I said, are you guys preparing for a protest? And they said, yeah, there's going to be a protest here at 2:30. And I said, oh, okay, because I didn't know. I was like, okay, so I'll wait until 2. And I stood there and I said, yeah, I drove all the way from Las Vegas. They said, oh, you drove from Las Vegas. It's a pause, and then the one officer that was speaking, he said, what do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Is what he said. And I felt something welling up because I didn't have any words. I started to do the ugly cry. So the ugly cry is where your whole face is involved. And I had my mask on, and God told me to take off my sunglasses. And I just cried. I didn't have any words. I cried, and I did not fill that space with words. And I just let my cry be the vibration of love. Because most of the time, you don't have the words, but you have that love that says so many things at the same time. And then after a long pause, and I cried in front of them, he said, well, we're here if you need us. And I walked away. 2:30 came, and there was a beautiful crowd there. Mostly young Caucasian people. And the reason I say that is because they know that the instructions need to change. That this is not about you being a bad person and you being a bad person. It's just we've been given these set of instructions that are killing people, that are keeping people in their place, whatever they decide your place is. And it's not going to stand anymore. That's what love does. Love speaks truth to power. It needs to change. And it's structural. It's baked in. And we have to give up our hate and our fear. When the protest took place, there wasn't a cop around. There were no police cars. I didn't see any. We're walking down the street. No police cars, no bulletproof vests, and no military garb. Let me tell you the power of love. When I cried in front of those police officers, most people think I was crying for Robert Fuller. I was crying for the soul of those police officers. I was looking into their soul. And with love, like my mom would say, bless his heart. So that is our mandate as lovers. This is not me hating on somebody. Hate, as Martin Luther King said, does not take out hate. Darkness does not take out darkness. Only love can do that. And sometimes, maybe most of the time, it's unspoken. But it comes from the heart of pure love. In closing, I'd like to say this beautiful, beautiful Bible verse that keeps coming back to me. And I remember thinking about it when I worked in Child Haven, and there were so many hurting kids that were fearful and would do all kinds of behaviors. They'd call us over and wanted us to do counseling on somebody that was screaming or tearing up a room, and I would go in and I would just sit. With a loving heart, you don't have to fill it with words. I just sit and say, I love you in my mind. I love you no matter what you're doing. I love you unconditionally. And if you had the patience and the love in your heart, they would stop tearing up their room. Maybe come and sit beside you, but I remember one kid just made a pallet in the middle of the floor and laid at my feet after being such a terror. And I rubbed his back and I said, I love you. And this Bible verse, perfect love casts out fear. And it goes on to say, and I'm paraphrasing, that the fear is in those that have not been loved perfectly. They have not been loved perfectly. Agape, unconditional love. You don't have to love me in return for this and that. Unconditional love. So who has perfect love? Because we need it now. Who has perfect love? We need it now. Because there are those who have not been loved perfectly. Those police officers, I loved them perfectly. The children at Child Haven, I loved them perfectly. And when I look at my shadow and I see the imperfections, all the times that I've come up wrong, all the times that I haven't loved perfectly, I love me perfectly so that I can be what is needed right now. Right now. Thank you.